After spending a ton of time testing out the new Solar 3.0 Hunter, I think I've settled on my 3 favorite builds. Each of these are PvP inspired, but they actually work great in PvE as well with just a few tweaks. Sure, you can still slap on Stompies and do great. Even after the nerf, they'll probably never be a bad pick. But I wanted to explore some of the new synergies that the Solar Hunter has to offer. By the way, each of these builds will have an associated dim loadout in the description so you can try it out for yourself. First up is the build centered around the weighted throwing knife. These have always been good, but now there's even more of a chance that you get your knife back instantly thanks to the new aspect, Knock 'em Down. So we're going to be using the Exotic Gloves Athros' Embrace, which gives your weighted knife an extra bounce. When you land 3 rapid headshots with this exotic, you activate the Skittering Stinger perk, and any extra headshots will extend this perk to last even longer. This gives your knives a huge damage buff. It's enough that you can even kill PvP enemies with a single body shot or even kill a roaming super with a headshot. And these buffed up knives can also stun unstoppable champions, which is extremely useful for PvE. What's so cool about this build is that with Knock 'em Down equipped, you can get your knife back anytime you land a throwing knife kill. That's even with a body shot as long as you're radiant. And there's a few ways to become radiant. First of all, your throwing knives themselves will make you radiant just by dealing damage with them if you have the Ember of Torches fragment slotted. This effect is crazy in PvP because your knife will actually make you radiant as soon as you land that first hit, and then the kill will instantly give that knife back thanks to Knock 'em Down. And unlike before, you don't even need a headshot to make this work, even a body shot will do the trick. With the Ember of Empyrean fragment, you'll continuously extend that radiant timer to give your weapons a damage buff. Of course, you also have the new dodge choice, Acrobat's Dodge. This will automatically make you and your nearby teammates radiant whenever you perform the dodge. But with this particular setup, you don't really need it because your knife is going to already make you radiant. So instead, just go with the Gambler's Dodge to get your knives back faster. Basically, your goal here is to land at least 3 headshots to proc the Athros' perk, and then start throwing those knives that can kill in just a body shot even around corners. And each kill will refresh your knife so you can just throw another one. To get the most out of this playstyle, I'd recommend converting your gloves over to the stasis element and slotting a melee kickstart mod so that even if you miss, you'll get a big chunk of melee energy towards your next knife. You can also use double outreach mods on your cloak to get a big chunk of melee energy back every time you dodge, and you can pair this with a high strength set to get your knives coming back really fast even if you miss. For weapons, the most obvious choice is the Monte Carlo auto rifle, which grants you melee energy on hit with a chance to fully refund your melee on kill. It also instantly buffs your weapon damage to the maximum of 5 stacks on a melee kill, which synergizes easily with your throwing knives. But in practice, I actually found more success using a pulse rifle, and I think the note time to explain is arguably the best pulse in the game right now. A faster firing pulse might get you those stacks a little bit faster, but no time has some fantastic range and it can force enemies to play more behind cover. This is where your buffed weighted throwing knives come in. When an enemy retreats behind cover to go play hide and seek, your knives will do the seeking job quite nicely for you. Quite nicely may actually be a big understatement. If you practice just a little bit with map geometry, you'll be able to land some of the easiest and funniest kills you've ever had in the Crucible. To round out this build, you're going to want to use the On Your Mark aspect to provide nearly half of the Dragon Shadows benefits for free. You can pick your grenade of choice and the fragments are up to you, but I would recommend choosing Ember of Torches to become radiant with your knives, Ember of Solace to increase the radiant duration, Ember of Searing to get your knives back faster, Ember of Singeing to get your dodge back faster, and Ember of Empyrean to extend the radiant timer even longer. These will all synergize together to get your dodges and knives back really fast so you spend more time throwing those awesome weighted knives. Build number 2 is my personal favorite this season and it's all around the Trapper playstyle. I made a video about this months ago and Solar 3.0 has increased the power exponentially thanks to some new synergies. Trip My Wombo combos this season are just insane. That's when you throw the Proximity Explosive Knife first and then instantly follow it up with a Trip My Grenade. This build centers around the young Ahamkara Spine Exotic Gloves. These have always been a strong pick on Hunter, but I really think this season has bumped them up into the S tier territory. These gloves buff your Trip Mine grenades in a few important ways. They last longer, they're much harder for enemies to take out, they deal a lot more damage and deal that damage in a much more generous explosion pattern, and as a bonus, they also throw your trip mines faster and further by giving you fastball for free. Basically, if you get even slightly touched by one of these trip mines, you're eating 160 damage, which at best is going to leave you with just 1 hit of health left from pretty much anything in the game, and at worst, it's going to make you part of a triple grenade collateral kill. The explosive knife deals 105 AoE damage when it blows up, so this combo is enough to blow up an entire team if you place them wisely. Without a doubt, this is my favorite way to play Hunter PvP right now. In any situation, I have 2 traps I can lay down to cover particular lanes so I can divert my attention to only covering one angle. If you throw these into choke points or behind an enemy, you're almost guaranteed to get at least a trade kill. And we have a number of ways to greatly buff this setup thanks to Solar 3.0. Just like the previous build, we're going to be taking the aspects Knock 'em Down and On Your Mark. But if you're feeling cheeky, this might be the best way to take advantage of the gunpowder gamble as well, since you're going to be getting so many grenade and knife kills. Your trip mines now automatically scorch enemies when they're damaged, and when you defeat scorched enemies, you get melee energy back from Ember of Searing. This is great because solar ability damage gives a chunk of grenade energy back towards your next trip mine. And the explosive knife here can actually count as 2 hits. There's one for the direct impact and one for the explosion. By the way, Fan of Knives here actually counts as 3 hits, but I would still recommend the explosive knife because it just works way better with this playstyle. On your gloves, once again I'd recommend making them the stasis elemental type, but this time using a grenade kickstart mod. Every time you throw your grenade, you're going to automatically get a big chunk towards your next one. On your cloak, you can run double bomber mods to get a huge chunk of grenade energy back every time you dodge. Plus, if you run the gambler's dodge, you'll also get your knife back for free if you're close enough, which you can then use to get your trip mines back even faster if you land a hit. Ember of Singeing will give you melee energy back for landing hits with your trip mines and applying the scorch. And Knock 'em Down is going to give that knife back if you get a kill. So you can probably see where this is going. Almost everything you do is giving your trip mines back faster. With this setup, you're basically never going to be without your grenade or your knife ready to set up a trap. To round out the build, I've been using mostly these 5 fragments: Torches, Solace, Searing, Singeing, and then a flex spot which either goes to Imperium for more radiant uptime, or Combustion for more explosions with Golden Gun, which is just really fun. For your weapons, you can really pick anything that you like here. The gloves are doing most of the heavy lifting, but I would recommend trying to find weapons that have Demolitionist to work with all the grenades you're going to be throwing. Kills with demo weapons give you a chunk of grenade energy back, and you're going to automatically reload your weapon just by throwing the grenade. This build can also pair great with weapons that feature Adrenaline Junkie, which gives you a huge damage boost and some bonus handling for landing a grenade kill. There's even a few weapons that can roll both of these perks together, like the new Duality Dungeons SMG Unforgiven, the Last Breath Auto Rifle and Judgment Hand Cannon from the Prophecy Dungeon, or the Insidious Pulse Rifle from the Vow of the Disciple raid. If you want to go a slightly different route, you can also try the new Hunter Exotic Gloves this season, Caliban's Hand. I'd still classify this as a trapper playstyle, but instead of buffing up your trip mines, these gloves are going to buff up your explosive knives. Basically, as soon as you throw your knife, it starts recharging faster until it explodes. It also scorches enemies with the explosion, and it can even ignite them with a direct hit. I didn't find this version to be quite as powerful as the Young Ahamkara setup, but if you have ideas on how to make this work better, let me know in the comments. You might say that I saved the best for last. Our final build abuses the damage buff you get from being Radiant in some interesting ways. This allows you to do ridiculous things like 2-tapping with the Ace of Spades after proccing Memento Mori's damage buff, or 2-tapping with the Dead Man's Tail after stacking up Cranial Spike. So of course, our goal is to be able to do these degenerate things as often as possible, and that means we need the maximum uptime on Radiant. There's 2 main ways that I found to do this effectively. I want to shout out Aaron Taft on Instagram for giving me the idea to look into this setup. And if you aren't following me on Instagram yet, well, this would be a good time to do it. My handle is Pattycakes GG. Anyway, this build centers around the new Acrobat's dodge, which instantly makes us become Radiant. The downside of this dodge choice is the substantially longer cooldown timer compared to the other dodge choices, so we want to find ways to cut down this timer as much as possible. We can use the exotic gloves Aeon Swift with the selectable mod Sect of Vigor to gain progress towards our dodge anytime our teammates die. Whoever expected our blueberries with no thumbs to actually be a blessing in disguise. You can also get your full dodge back instantly by resurrecting teammates, which could be helpful in Rift or Trials of Osiris. On our cloak, we can slot a Stasis Utility Kickstart mod to get a chunk of dodge energy back instantly anytime we dodge. There's also the option to run 2 of these things, but since they're so cheap and stacking provides diminishing returns, you might consider running just one and putting a classy Restoration mod in the other slot from the seasonal artifact. That way, every time you dodge, you're not only becoming Radiant with the damage buff, but you're also healing faster. Alternatively, you can also run the Radiant Orbs mod from the artifact to become Radiant anytime you pick up an orb. If you pair this with the Harmonic Siphon or Kinetic Siphon mod in your helmet, you can guarantee that these orbs pop up just by getting the corresponding type of kills. And if we're honest, getting 2-tap kills with the Ace of Spades isn't exactly the hardest thing to do in the game. With this setup, you're going to be getting them non-stop. This can also pair great with an Absolution or Insulation mod in your legs to get your next dodge back faster from the orbs. If running the Aeon gloves isn't really your thing, well, first of all, I don't really blame you because these have never been too popular for PvP. But I do have a good alternative. Our old friends the Frosties can dramatically reduce your dodge cooldown as well as your other ability cooldowns just by sprinting around the map. I guess the choice to use these or the Aeons comes mostly down to how often your teammates are dying, how much you like sprinting around the map, and how much you value your other abilities. And keep in mind, dodging isn't the only way to become Radiant. We also now have access to the old Lightweight Knife. This is probably the weakest of all the melee options on the Solar Hunter, but in this particular scenario, it's yet another way to become Radiant and abuse the extra damage. But there is a problem with this. You can also become Radiant just by dealing damage with any of the charged melee abilities thanks to the Ember of Torches. So for now, I'd still recommend any of the other knife choices, probably the Explosive Knife for the easiest hits to proc Radiant. Like the other builds, you're going to want to use On Your Mark and Knock 'em Down for your aspects here. For your fragments, I would go with the same 5: Torches, Solus, Searing, Singeing, and Empyrean. While running Empyrean, you're heavily encouraged to use the solar special weapon for easy kills to extend that radiant timer. I would recommend trying out the 7th Seraph shotgun here if you have access to a good roll. It's my favorite shotgun in the game, and the radiant damage boost takes away the only real limiting factor, which is the lower damage output compared to the precision and aggressive frames. And of course, you can't go wrong with my personal favorite sniper rifle in the history of Destiny, the Beloved. This one also happens to be solar, and it's farmable in the new seasonal activity. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I'm going to pick 5 subscribers at the end of the month to give a special prize, so be sure to hit that sub button if you haven't yet. And up next, I think you'd enjoy my video on 17 exotic combos that you need to try in Destiny 2. It's the video on the top right of your screen and also linked in the description.